We just kind of talked about it as a staff, and we continued to go back that Jacoby's probably had the best at-bats off of him and offers us, the most speed of the three DHs, and that's why we went. I mean, Corey Kluber, his history is a lot of people don't have success off him. So, we looked at who's had the most, the speed option, and that's why we went with Jake.
Other questions, Meredith?
Joe, everyone in that clubhouse says they have a ton of confidence in CC Sabathia that he can get the job done. What makes him the right guy for tonight?
We've seen it so many times. It's in his personality. Has the experience that he's been in these type of games, and he doesn't change. And I think he embraces them. I mean, I think this is, you look at when he signs up for a season, this is what he signs up for, these type of games. And I think that's why we all have so much confidence in him. We've seen him do it so many times.
Right, front Marley, third row.
Hi, Joe. In the same topic of Sabathia, please talk to us about the difference between 2 years ago he made that very difficult decision to not pitch in that game and put himself in rehab going through such a tough personal time, and now he is up there for the Yankees, showing up in an elimination game.
Of all the things that I've ever seen CeCe do, from afar, obviously, watching him pretty closely in Milwaukee and what he was and how much you admired what he did, having a chance to watch him pitch for us and be the big game pitcher and lead us to a World Series. I admired that moment more than any because he put his family first and his life in front of the game. And sometimes we get really caught up in our jobs and love what we do, and we forget what the most important thing is. And CeCe did not. He knew his health and his family were more important than the game of baseball. And as much as it probably killed him inside, he knew he had to make a choice. And I probably admire him more for that than anything he's ever done on the field.
In the back row, Ken.
Joe, I don't know if you followed the controversy around the Nationals the last 24 hours with Dusty and Strasburg and just some.
Yeah.
But my question to you is, how much have you learned the value of just being on the same page with your front office and your trainers about making sure the proper information, particularly about injured players, gets out?
Yeah, sometimes it's hard because you're trying to protect, maybe a team trying to do something against your team or that sort of thing, and it's not that you don't want to disclose the information because you don't want it to get out, but you don't want to disclose it because you might you feel gives the team an unfair advantage, and that's the tricky part. The more I do this job, the more you realize that it's very hard to keep secrets today. So a lot of times it's just easier to disclose. And maybe, sometimes, you want to go back and talk about it one more time as a group before you make a decision. So you don't want to say, well, we're deciding because this guy is sick, where Tanner Roark's mind is up for grabs in a sense. So you want Tanner to stay locked in. So there's a lot of reasons we do things that maybe doesn't make sense to everyone else, but it makes sense to us. But if you can put it out there and it's not going to affect everything, it's always easier.
Other questions? Hazel will get you the microphone.
Joe, how does knowing Encarnacion is in the Indians lineup change your team's game plan or approach, if it does at all?
Well, I mean, we know how dangerous he is, but the people in front of him are dangerous. The people behind him are dangerous, too. And we've seen him do it to us for a long time, Before it was in our division for the last few years, how dangerous he is. So, I mean, we're going to approach him the same way we did in Game 1 and Game 2. Carefully, but you got to make your pitches on him just like anybody else.
In the middle, Jared.
Joe, from the outside, it seems that your team has sort of embraced fun and like a little more individualism among the players than maybe some of your more veteran-led teams. I'm wondering where you think that attitude has come from.
Youth. I think we're living in an age where youth does that, where before it didn't necessarily happen here. And it's kind of fun to watch and to watch these kids do what they're doing. And, maybe I'm in a sense, understand it more because I have teenagers. I have a 15-year-old and an 18-year-old, and there's, they have, I look at some of my son's outfits and I say, whew, but he likes the style, and that's not something that is necessarily in my generation, but it's in his, and I respect it. He has his own taste, and Starlin's his favorite dresser, and it is what it is. So I kind of like it. I think it shows the youthfulness of this team, and sometimes you get a laugh about it, some of the things that you see.
Other questions? Meredith, and then Ken.
Joe, this team's back was really against the wall in this series, down 0-2. Is there a sense of pride in just the way that they've battled back and have been able to force a Game 5 today?
Well, I'm proud of the way they've battled back all year. I'm proud of the way they battled back Tuesday in our first playoff game, against Minnesota, where you get down 3-0 in a hurry. Your ace is knocked out in the first inning. Yeah, I am, because this team has never stopped fighting and never stopped believing, and I think that's the mark of a very good team. They know how to persevere and continue to grind out everything, whether it's in a bat or it's on the other side, you're facing a batter, how you grind it out. So there's a lot to be proud of, the last 3 games, in a sense, that we've had in those situations.
In the middle, Joe. Ken.
Joe, I'm looking at some of these Cleveland averages, and your pitchers have done a pretty good job this series. How important is advanced scouting coming into a series like this?
Oh, I think it's really important. I think the job that Larry Rothschild does, preparing our pitchers. I mean, this guy watches countless hours of video. I mean, so many hours that, I'm amazed. I watch a lot of video. Nothing like Larry. And he knows, and he lives and dies with every pitch. So he does a tremendous job of preparing. Our advanced scouts went out and probably watched Cleveland for a month, gave us information that was really helpful. It's all part of it. And, you get to the middle of September, and all of a sudden you're sending, 10 groups out, 8 groups out to go watch teams, and you're not sure who you're going to face. And they're there for a month following a team, and it's a lot of work they put in. We're very appreciative.
To your left, Joe. Andrew.
Joe, regardless how tonight turns out, what do you personally think about the future of this club?
Oh, I think it's really good. I think it's really bright. When I look at the youth and the talent of the youth that is here now, the youth that is really close, and then the youth that might be a year or 2 away, I think it is extremely bright. I think the Yankees are set up for a really good run. And, there's a lot of things that have to go into that. Health has to play an important role. But you look at the impact players that are youthful now that we already have, that's big. And you're not talking about 7, 8, 9 hitters. You're talking about middle-of-the-order hitters that are big and can be extremely productive. So I think the future is very bright.
Anything else for Joe? Dan, to your right, Joe.
How has Holiday handled the situation?
I think is about as good as you can. I've been there, where Georgie and I had the guys that we each caught, and I wanted to be in there every day, and Georgie wanted to be in there every day, and sometimes you have to make sacrifices for the good of the team. It's not easy, because it's harder watching than playing. It's much easier playing, because you feel like you're into the game and you can change the game. When you're watching, it's really difficult. So it's been hard, but he's been very professional, and he's trying to stay ready.
On your left, Joe. Tim.
Joe, you get to a day where you've spent 4 or 5 days, and now this is your 3rd game, sort of on this brink, this edge of, is it today? Do you,
Right.
Personally, how does that treat you? Do you end up getting to this afternoon feeling wrung out or inspired, or how are you feeling today?
No, I think what you're feeling is there are a million things going through your mind all the time. And they do a little bit during the regular season when you get in some series that are really pivotal, but not like these games. And you're trying to go over everything. And what you realize is you've seen this team for 4 days in a row. You saw them in August. You saw them, for 6 games, I think, in the month of August. We've seen them a lot. So there's not really a whole lot that we haven't uncovered, but you're still thinking about every situation that can possibly come up. So how do I feel? I feel my mind is on the game more than it ever is. That's how you feel. That's the difference.
Adam in the middle.
Kind of following up on Ken's question about communication and injuries and that kind of thing. How important and how involved is the process when you get together with, like, you know, your training staff, your PR staff, your front office, to sort of figure out what you want to say and how to say it, and kind of what, you know, how you have to, like,
We try to
support system.
Yeah, we try to communicate the group of us so we're all on the same page and we understand what, you know, so that there's no miscommunication. Because the one thing that, you know, you don't want people to think you're doing is lying to them. And there's a difference between lying and not disclosing something because you might feel it puts you at a disadvantage. And I was probably as much closed as anyone in the beginning of my career, and I'm a little bit different now because I learned some of the controversy that it can cause. I mean, I can go back to Mo in 2008 when he had that little thing in his shoulder that was going to, I believe, require a cleanup, but it wasn't going to affect him pitching, you know. And sometimes players don't want you to say anything, so you got to respect that. But it's important that you're all on the same page and that you talk about it. And I don't think that managers are trying to be dishonest or trying to fool anyone or trying to give, you know, anyone a story before anyone else. I think it's just, you always worry about, we want to keep our advantage and our edge, and that's our thought process. Because you look at the teams now, we're all really close, and so whatever edge you can keep, you try to keep it.
One last one for Joe. We'll finish up with Marley right here.
Joe, you've managed a long time against John Farrell, and his contract was not renewed by the Red Sox today. Just your feelings about that.
You know, I feel for him. I've been there. My heart goes out to him because I know how much he puts into the job and how much you put your heart and soul into a job. And I don't care what level it is, where you're at in your life. When you get, you know, not retained or fired, it's no fun. And it hurts because of, you know, in your mind, you've put your heart and soul into something, and it's someone saying that we think someone else can do a better job, or we're going to go a different direction, and it hurts. And I feel for him. And I was saying earlier when I was talking to our beat writers, I'm a huge college football fan, and my heart goes out to those coaches that are under fire, because you know, as much as you're under fire, for me personally, I worry about my family being under fire. You know, the I don't know what kids do today. They tweet, or, you know, all that stuff that they do that, you know, they're defensive, and it hurts them. So John Farrell has a family. He has a son that's in the big leagues. I'm sure it hurts him. So, you know, my heart goes out to him.